The Employment Standard is part of the Integrated Accessibility Standards Regulation of the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act 2005. This standard helps employers make their employment practices and workplaces more accessible to potential and existing employees with disabilities. This video deals with one of the requirements of the Employment Standard.
The Human Resources Professionals Association, HRPA, presents.
In this exciting episode, Harold Jeepers in accessible formats and communication supports. This is Harold. He is a new manager at Jiffy Brothers Industries.
Sonia arrives in Harold's office doorway.
This is Sonia. She is Jiffy Brothers' go-to HR person and a certified human resources professional. Sonia asks Harold, "Have you been looking at how to make sure your communications are accessible to all Jiffy employees?" Harold says, "You bet. Come take a look at this."
Harold shows Sonia the bulletin board in the hallway. It's been mounted quite high up on the wall.
Sonia tells Harold that these company announcements are very hard to read. Harold proudly tells her that he has that covered.
Harold holds up a magnifying glass.
See? Now it's easy to read. But then Sonia points out that it's also been placed very high up.
Bill, who is using a wheelchair, approaches Sonia and Harold. He stops at the bulletin board, which is too high for him to read from. Using a remote-controlled toy helicopter, Bill maneuvers it to snatch a message from the bulletin board and deliver it into his hand.
Harold asks if that's good, and Bill gives him a thumbs up. Sonia is not so sure. Sonia tells Harold that most information and communication supports will already have been covered in an employee's individual accommodation plan.
At the computer, a man is wearing a microphoned headset. He's listening to the computer's synthetic voice.
This is especially true for information that an employee needs in order to perform her or his job.
Sonia tells Harold to just follow Jiffy's accessibility policies and processes for information that is generally available to employees in the workplace. "I have a great idea," thinks Harold. "Everyone can understand mimes. That's accessible."
Harold gazes off, imagining. As the screen becomes wavy, we see a mime gesturing in the hallway as company employees gather around. As the mime continues performing, two employees in the foreground communicate by signing. The mime tries to get their attention, gesturing frantically, but he fails. Then in frustration, he walks off.
No, perhaps that won't work, thinks Harold.
Sonia is holding a binder in her arms, with the title, Policies and Processes.
Sonia tells Harold to just follow Jiffy Brothers' processes, including letting all employees know that they can confidentially talk to him about accessible formats and communication supports. Harold did just that, with great results.
Harold is seen meeting with various company employees.
Lucy, one of Jiffy's most popular employees, has an intellectual disability. One of her duties is to deliver paper files directly to people.
Lucy pushes a cart filled with folders and delivers them to various co-workers.
Harold was able to problem solve with Lucy, and her cart was set up with photos along with names, and everyone in the office had a matching photo next to their office or cubicle. James lost his vision 3 years ago and was just hired as a sales representative at Jiffy.
He was able to request screen reading software as part of his individual accommodation plan so that all information present on the screen and all information input into the system would be read back to him.
James is at his computer with his microphoned headset. The computer's voice has been speaking.
James is now one of Jiffy's top 5 salespersons.
James's picture is on the bulletin board as the salesperson of the month.
Rose is hard of hearing, and although she wore hearing aids, she was concerned about participating fully in department meetings. Harold and Rose were able to come up with a simple change. They shifted to a round table format, and all attendees made sure Rose could see their faces when they were talking.
Harold and Sonia stand next to the bulletin board, and he gestures to show how it's been lowered down so everyone can read it. A sign on the board says, "Picnic on the 12th, $5."
Harold thanks Sonia for her knowledge and help. He's going to be more proactive about ensuring his communications are accessible.
Bill, who uses a wheelchair, sees that the bulletin board is now at a great height for him. He gives a thumbs up to the camera.
Best of all, he's decided to forget about using mime to communicate with his staff. You have been watching Accessible Formats and Communication Supports. The story you have just seen is real, but the names have been changed because they're late for dinner.
A mime runs down the hallway, chased by a toy helicopter. To learn more and download free tools and resources, go to ontario.ca/accesson. This video is part of HRPA's Enabling Change Partnership Project with the Government of Ontario. Special thanks to Link Up Employment Services for Persons with Disabilities for connecting us to their employees and clients as cast members. www.linkup.ca Produced by Keyring Media. www.keyringmedia.com